I am now going to tell you what life looks like after Mars. So I told you what I've been doing the last 15 years, and just want to give you a sneak peek of what I'm doing today. So I've spent the last 15 years, as I mentioned, building this equity and growing myself as a shopper marketer expert. And now I get the pleasure of taking all of that knowledge and experience and sharing it with a lot of different companies. So I've been in this consulting world, which is awesome and scary and fun and exciting, but I get to work with a lot of great organizations and helping them with their business needs on shopper marketing and insights. And then one of my partners that I've just recently joined with is Ground Truth, helping them establish themselves in shopper marketing and the offerings that they have to bring to the table. Incredible technology, incredible measuring and insights, and that's what I'm going to talk to you about today. All right, so insights and activation. As I mentioned, I had the opportunity to go work on site at Walmart, building a proprietary insights platform for them. And I'll be honest with you, I had no idea what the hell an insight was. I didn't, and neither did they, and it was awesome. It was great. We learned together, we grew together, but at the core belief behind it was that learning, just understanding the business. What are you trying to seek? What does the business need? What are the questions? What are the goals and objectives? And by simply listening to all 3,000 different associates over there and what they were trying to do to grow Walmart, I learned an incredible amount about consumers, about shoppers, about the different categories within that organization. Some amazing activations I got to work on. And Mike Duke's 2020 team came out of that was Pick Up Grocery. So it's amazing to see that groundwork was laid 7 years ago, 8 years ago. It didn't just happen. There's a lot of work and a lot of insights and a lot of data that goes into that. I got to lead a baby summit for multiple manufacturers at one time with Scott Huff. And then I also got to work on the meat campaign, like moms love meat. What? And they're very particular about it. I'll never forget one of my favorite moments at Walmart was when Steve Bratsby's emailed me and he said, "What's happening with dry grocery?" I thought, well, I don't know. I have no idea. And he's not the kind of guy where you can say, well, Steve, what do you mean? What's happening with dry grocery? You just do it. You just figure it out. So I met with every single DMM, every buyer within all of those categories. And there's a lot of categories within dry grocery. And I came back 3 months later and I said, Steve, I have the work done. Very extensive research, qual, quant, you name it, every input was put into that project. And he said, great, I have 5 minutes. Tell me everything I need to know. And that is how it works. That is how insights into activation works. And as the volatility in the marketplace continues to become the new normal, retailers and manufacturers are making significant efforts to tighten their relationships, not only with each other, but with their shoppers and with their consumers. They want to get to know them. They want to know their mindsets and their behaviors and their beliefs and their whys and their whats and their hows, and to create solutions for those. Not only with each other, but then with their partners as well and their vendor partners. And in addition, a diverse and more capable competition continues to develop almost in every single trading area or category. And the competition couldn't be more fierce. We're all competing. As someone said earlier, now I'm partnering with Ground Truth. Well, you're the competition. We're all competing. We're all competing. But if rather, think about it the opposite way. How about we work together to deliver on these insights these shoppers are telling us? How do we create those solutions that are meaningful, that are putting the shopper first, not our brands, not our widget or our gadget? Like, how do we put them at the center of what we're doing? And as we've heard a lot today, digital is completely reshaping where and how our consumers consume and our shoppers shop. And they're telling us their full path to purchase across this ecosystem. My question to you is, are you listening? Are you paying attention? If I could go back to myself over the past even 6 years working on the Mars business, but even before then, pay attention to it. Listen to your shoppers. They're telling you what they want, what they need, when, why, how. and how to do it. So what? Who cares? My biggest sponsor while I was there at Walmart would say this to me often. I would find an insight, a nugget. I would bring something amazing, groundbreaking, and then he would say, so what? Who cares? The reality is that the power of an insight is incredible. It's absolutely incredible. But the cost of entry is data and analytics, and businesses have a lot of data today. Companies have a lot of data. In my time at Mars, I had so many different metrics with Nielsen and IRI and the retail link data and all of the different marketing data inputs and consumer and category information. There's so much that's going on in this space. And it is a cost of entry. It's a way of doing business with your partners. Where the competition and the compete comes in to even start to win is the observation, paying attention to that data. And when the insights are derived from all of that work, that's when you actually win. This is my favorite picture, so it's maybe not relevant, but I just love it so much. But shopper marketing success begins and ends with understanding your consumer and your shopper into a deeper level of getting true inspiration. And this couldn't be more true today, especially with the technologies that we have at our fingertips to be able to serve this up. But the real, this quote I like right here, the real voyage of discovery consists in not seeking new landscapes, but having new eyes. Again, if I could go back and do it differently, all the things we were talking about today so far, I would have focused more on those things, the basics, the insights, just understanding the mindsets and behavior. While Shopper Insights is very popular and somewhat new, it's receiving a lot of publicity in different conferences and news articles and in media. It's not new, and shopping research goes back at least 75 years or more. The rapid growth of self-serving retail in the U.S. after World War II, people were studying behavior. They were studying the shopping trips. They were studying the packaging and the promotions and the things that were taking place. Right? So why can't we figure it out? Why is it so complicated? But guess what? The truth is, there's no such thing as a shopper insight. I'm for real. Look it up in Wikipedia. It doesn't even exist. There's no such thing. But what it is, this is actually the definition of shopper marketing. And when you read through it, understanding how one's target consumers behave as shoppers in different channels and formats and leveraging this intelligence to benefit all stakeholders defined as brands, consumers, retailers, and shoppers. Right? So which this means at the root of shopper marketing, what we do is and should always be grounded in insights. Not just the strategy, not just the big idea, but the full activation all the way through. And that is how you affect change, when you can truly understand your consumers and shoppers. So what defines a real insight? I've done a lot of consulting over the years, well, for free until now, but I'm working with my counterparts and helping them to show up better in their JBP process, helping them to approach their business a little bit differently because I care and I want them to succeed. When we all succeed, it all works better together. And I will never forget one situation where I sat down with one of my peers and she was walking me through her JBP process, and slide 2, insights. But nowhere on that page was an insight. It was a bunch of data and a bunch of facts that she had gathered from multiple sources that told me nothing. There was not an insight there. But that's what we fall victim to. My agency partners, I had the same challenge multiple times, understanding what an insight is and what it's not. So what it is, it elicits a consumer reaction. It should make you feel something. It is not a description of habits or practices. It's not superficial or obvious. It is not a list of data and facts about a shopper or consumer. It is a consumer or shopper truth that tells you the what and the how and the why. And you have to, I apologize for this, but these are 5 principles that I believe very strongly in shopper insights and have guided a lot of my success over my career, not only in my time at Walmart and working in insights, but over the course of my tenure at Mars as well. My biggest successes at Mars were driven in these principles of insights. And I was a better marketer because I had the opportunity to fully understand what an insight was. And I challenge you, if that's not a part of your core capability or what you're doing today, even if you're a vendor partner, even if you are an agency team, this is the basics in serving your customers, whether it's the retailer or your clients. But I'm just going to read this to you because I think it's important. Powered by connections based on empathetic understanding of human tension. That in itself is a very big sentence. When rooted in universal human truths and human stories, they're a source of inspiration for global ideas that can be locally executed, and that's pretty powerful. They trigger a brand breakthrough, a setup or a reframe of how a brand can uniquely deliver against a human need. They're based on brand character, equity, and values. They provide fertile ground to multiple levels of brand activation, be it product, communication, in store. It should be across the entire ecosystem. And this is my favorite part. Oftentimes are brilliantly simple. Again, meat campaign, 6 months worth of work. Moms love meat. They do, and they're very passionate about it, and it's very important to them. But I think it's critical that we have all of this data and all of this information and boiling it down to its simplest form to fuel an idea or a strategy. And a lot of times they're obvious. They're right there. All right. So this is it. This is what insights look like, right? Super simple. Data, insights, actions. One of the other biggest things I learned in my time at Walmart and working in the GCIA department was that before you started any insights planning or insights activity, you had to understand how it was being used. You have to know that. And one of the things I emphasize with a lot of my clients in the shopper insight space is you are providing wonderful information, and it's great you're doing all of this work. But at the end of the day, how do you drive business with that information? How was it used to affect the organization to drive growth, to drive collaboration with your partners, your retailer partners, or even internally, right? And it really isn't that complicated. And many of the data sources that a lot of companies already have, they don't know how to use them. But those can glean a lot of insights. So find the right people to help you do that. But one thing I want to be clear, data does not equal insights. Again, I mentioned this earlier, it is not the same thing. And it's very obvious that this is a gap in the industry. It's a gap in the agency side, it's a gap in CPG, it's a gap with Walmart. They still have struggles with understanding what true insights are and how to use them. Right? We're accustomed to focusing on sales data, right? And our Retail Inc. analytics. And, but not actually telling the story, telling why that matters, who cares, so what. And it starts, again, with understanding your business questions. It doesn't start with the approach. I don't need you to tell me that I need to do a monadic test, concept testing. I don't need you to tell me we need to do a quant survey with 50,000 representatives or a shop along. You have to begin and end with what the business question was. What are you trying to achieve with this work? Instead of diving into the research, identify all of those because that's what the information will be used to affect change. So how do you connect it all together? We've talked about this complex space where it's happening. It is about identifying the process that takes place between the first thought that a consumer has about consuming that item all the way through the selection of that item that the shopper has in shopping for it, wherever they are, whenever they are. That is the shopper journey. But then what? What happens after you have the data and then the insights? There's so much information that could and should fuel your thinking, your approach, and your plans. Yet again, so many companies don't know how to derive the insights from the data. But it's not the role of our shoppers to tell us what those insights are, to verbalize them. It takes teamwork. It takes collaboration across the entire organization. Shopper insights work cannot be done in isolation, in a vacuum. It takes category input. It takes sales. It takes the marketing partners. It takes brand partners. It takes learning and observing all of the consumer work into the shopper work and pulling that all together. It is very much a cross-collaboration effort with multiple functions involved. And efficiently translate those insights into action, you have to have those partners bought in at the beginning, in advance. You have to have those stakeholders as a part of the conversation up front, because guess what? If they're not going to believe you, and they're not going to care what information you bring. Right? This was a challenge on the Walmart side as well, where they had many different manufacturers bringing them these amazing insights decks and research, and we couldn't get more decks from supplier partners. But the problem was that it was done on their time, on their terms, with their approach, with an unbiased opinion, most cases, and you weren't given all of the information. But that's how the internal organizations feel as well, too. If you're doing shopper research for Walmart in particular, why shouldn't it be fully encompassing of the total business to help address some of those questions? Not every project is big. Some are small to answer some of the business objectives. But again, identifying those up front, and then your approach will lead you there. But it takes having those key stakeholders bought into the process early enough so they believe the information that you deliver back to their organization, your organization, or your partners. And you have to move with speed. Identify and align on what those deliverables are. Again, insights are useless. They're just another PowerPoint on someone's desk unless they are used. You have to use them, or it's a waste of money, a waste of time. And then connect back internally. Show how that information was used. How did that work? Translate all the way into activation. How did you create something from this? Again, some of my best work at Mars was by leveraging insights. And they weren't groundbreaking. It wasn't anything crazy. I did some work once where my sales executive said, we have a $100 million gap on M&Ms. What are you going to do? Well, I need to understand first why, when, how people consume, where they buy it, why they buy it, how they use it, when they use it. What are their expectations of M&Ms as a brand? What are their expectations of Walmart as a retailer partner? And what are they seeking? What are their objections? What are their barriers, their beliefs, and their whys, most importantly? So I had to take a step back. Sure, we could have sat in a conference room for 2 weeks, coming up with hundreds of ideas. That would have been awesome. But none of them would have been grounded in insights or truth or behavior or an understanding of who that shopper is and what she's looking for specifically. That work that was done took 12 weeks, but it fueled 5 years worth of strategy. 5 years for that brand. We closed that gap very quickly, very quickly. But none of it would have been possible had we not asked the question, right? What's the why behind it? Not just the sales data, not just we know that there's a gap to plan. Take a step back, and I challenge you all to think this way. Again, not just from a CPG perspective, but even a vendor. What insights are you bringing to your partners? How do you help them grow their business? That should always be part of the first part of the conversation, right? The why. And you may not uniquely own your core insight. Guess what? It's not just you. But what you do own is how you solve for that insight in a way that is unique and distinctive to your brand. Right? Some of the big programs, again, that I worked on They weren't any owned insights by Mars, but they were relevant to that brand. They were relevant to the retailer partner and drove significant growth as well. I presented last year at the Path to Purchase for a Halloween program, and a few of you may know of this. It was called a booing campaign, right? And what it was, and that's not a new idea. It was happening in pockets all around the country. But what the observation was that if shoppers are at 90%, 90% of shoppers are trick-or-treating. There's only a 10% conversion opportunity there, right? You're not going to get them to do more trick-or-treating. Either they don't believe in it, or they don't celebrate, or it's unsafe, right? So reading a lot of that sentiment from shoppers of the whys. But, and I hear the challenge even in my head today, but only 6% of people are booing. What is booing anyways? And that's what I continue to hear in the organization. Sure, but what playing on the insight of delivering candy to doorsteps that surprise and delight drives earlier season sales, right? Another bag in the basket. It also delivers on a behavior that is intuitive to millennials. It's also very relevant for the candy category. And we don't have that compression of the season the last 2 weeks where 60% of the sales are happening, right? Why do we bank on that? How do we start to drive earlier season relevance? It's with a solution. It's understanding a behavior that's happening. And if only 6%, that means I have 90%, 94% conversion opportunity there. That's a lot of candy, and that's pretty awesome. And that program has grown over the last 3 years quite significantly. But there are multiple ones like that, but they started with an insight. They started with a business question, gathering the insight or deriving the insight from the data that we had, multiple sources of data, not doing a big, huge study, but just simply diving into it. Okay? And again, booing is not owned by anybody. It's owned by the shopper. It's something that they're doing, so take advantage of it. I will leave you with just these key thoughts. I'm super passionate about insights, by the way, if you can't tell. I love it. I love it. I am an insights nerd in a marketer's body, like for real. But I love seeing those ideas come to fruition. When you can know a mindset or a behavior, and then you see that play out throughout commerce, that's magic. And it happens. And you wonder why it's so successful? Because you know it's rooted, you know it's grounded in insights, right? To be successful in shopper marketing, you must understand your shopper, period. Absolutely, on all sides, all sides. But you also must make the distinction between a consumer and a shopper. I'll never forget, I was working with a brand director who was awesome, and he said, "Tell me the difference between a consumer and a shopper." I was like, "Is this a trick question? Are you kidding me?" I said, well, a consumer consumes and a shopper shops, right? Super simple. He begged to differ. He thought that there was not really much of a difference. We know better. We know differently. We know that there's certain triggers. We know there's certain mindsets and behaviors and activities that take place with the two. And sure, they cross over. Absolutely. But not a lot of times will one message or an insight be relevant to both at the same time. Understand that a great insight can come from existing data sources. Again, use the knowledge and the tools you have, or else they're meaningless, right? Leverage that information. And it's hard. It's a trained activity to really derive insights from data. It's not easy. I'll tell you, because I didn't know how to do it. I didn't, but I was doing it, which is really cool. And then listen to your shoppers and consumers. Read your reviews. I know it was mentioned earlier. Look at those ratings. Listen to them. Spend time in stores. Talk to people. Get outside of your Mars world or your chocolate world and explore. You'll learn a lot. And insights are not an instead of instructions. This is so critical to understand. It's a compass, but it requires brave thinking, right? People were telling me that I shouldn't have done that booing campaign. I knew what the opportunity was. And in many other different cases, the insights are a compass to help guide you there. How we activate it is up to us, right? That's our choice and how we deliver the message. But it's also understanding those full insights, not just that one idea, but along the entire path to purchase. And get comfortable with the unknown. All right, there's still a lot of questions that are out there, and insights should be able to help you with that gut check, right? And again, if you can derive the insights from the data and then test that back, that's pretty cool as well. And the last thing is you'll know it when you find it. A lot of times, like I said, people are looking for that golden nugget. They don't exist. Maybe 1%, maybe. It's going to be very obvious in most cases, those insights, right? It's not complicated. And that's it.